Okay, so I have one for you. Pick two of your favorite authors that are no longer with us. So these would not be contemporary. And if they were not authors, what job do you think they would have? And I'm going to push this a little bit further. I'm going to say if they were alive now. What job? So not back in the day, like, because I have a couple of people I want to pick specifically who would not have been allowed to do what I think they would have been really good at. So if they were alive today, what would they be doing if they weren't authors? So,
Oh, well, I'll pick one contemporary.
okay.
Mike Resnick, passed away recently, science fiction author, very prolific, very much space opera, military sci-fi, but also did fantasy and other things. He'd be breeding horses.
Really?
Horses were his passion.
Oh, yeah?
So he would be breeding horses.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
I'm going to go way back. Marcus Tullius Cicero.
That's way back.
And today, he would be what he was then. He would be a senator, probably Republican from someplace like North Carolina or West Virginia, delightfully and very urbanely and wittily throwing bombs in the Senate.
So, yeah, so he'd still be doing what he was doing.
Yeah,
No,
he would
okay.
be, I mean, he was very much an elitist,
Okay.
made no bones about it. He was a country guy. He wanted his estate and his farm. So, I can see him with a nice big plantation or horse farm down in the Carolinas or someplace like that. He would be the conservative intellectual.
Okay. Fair enough.
He would be the conservative gadfly in the Senate.
It's funny that you say that because I picked Charlotte Perkins Gilmore, who wrote The Yellow Wallpaper and who was a humanist and is considered to be one of the original feminists because she was a humanist. And I don't know that she would consider herself a feminist because she was a humanist. And that was, and for her, it was all about, being equal and treating people, as humans. And I think she would be a politician if she were alive today, rather than what she was doing back then, which she was a bit of an activist. She formed the first coalition of child care and home care of women, so that the women who wanted to go out to work could. It was almost like a co-op, and her idea was that the women who wanted to go out into the world and work could, and the ones who wanted to do housekeeping and child care would be the caretakers and do that, so that the other women could go out and work. But she was, certainly born at the wrong time to make a go of all of that, because the world wasn't ready for it. And I think she would be definitely a politician, and a successful one in this day and age. But she would not be a Republican.
Nope.
She would not, by any stretch, be a Republican. She and AOC would probably get along quite well. And then Mary Shelley. So I was thinking about Mary Shelley, and my first instinct was, would she be a scientist? Would Mary Shelley be a scientist? And then I got to thinking about all the other things that she did. And I think she would have been a social worker and an activist. I don't think she would have gone into science.
So
she did a lot of work with...
Was it her daughter who was the mathematician?
I don't remember that part. I don't know that she had a daughter that grew to maturity.
There was...
She had a number of children who died young or died in childbirth. Maybe
Lovelace. She was a brilliant mathematician who got very little credit because it was mid 19th century. And she is somehow connected with Mary Shelley. She may be one of Lord Byron's daughters.
Yeah, but
not Shelley's, but knew her and was profoundly influenced by her sense of freedom, because I can't remember, I think it was Alice or something Lovelace, just totally broke all the rules. And she was actually a close associate of Charles Babbage.
Well, I'd have to go back and look at that. I know that Mary Shelley did a lot of work with fallen women, and and did not treat them as lesser. And in fact, and she also managed to help a couple of people who were friends of hers get fake IDs. So I really think there's something there that I want to dig a little harder into. So having this question come up, I thought was really interesting because there's a lot more to Mary Shelley than I realized when I started to dig back in. And I've read a lot of her work, but I hadn't really spent a lot of time on her.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see that.
yeah. So there you go. I thought that was an interesting question that got tossed our way to give us something to talk about. So
Some interesting answers.
yeah. Okay, before we forget, let's do a writing update. You're deep in the throes.
I'm deep in the throes of the Civil War still. I've made my first 2 major plot points. Events that I really need to cover and, how do I say it, humanize.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, there are 3. One was, there's a recorded speech that Dudley gives that sounds very pompous and, overbearing. So I had to put a good chunk of that speech in because it really defines his character very well and his point of view. But I had to come up with a way to do it
to make it
seem like this is what he would
right.
kind of naturally do, and again bring out Emmeline's personality. So, there's a gathering of the various guild merchants and Chamber of Commerce people for Liverpool that is being held at the consular residence, and of course, a good number of these people are pro-Confederate, and there is a record that this Mr. Goodall makes this speech about how he hopes that they can find a resolution to this war and normalize trade, which was lifted right out of a London paper editorial about normalization of the situation by recognizing the Confederacy. And so this is, clearly a barb thrown at Dudley. So he gets up and gives a very impassioned speech about how this isn't about that. This is about slavery. Make no mistake,
right,
this war is about slavery. This is well before Lincoln even enunciated this, and Dudley was a staunch abolitionist the whole time. So, of course, he offends half the room. Whereupon Emmeline steps in, being the sociable one, realizes that this group of guys over here, we're never going to get anywhere. They're already hardliners. But she notices all of the people who either actually listened to what her husband said or were not openly hostile, and makes it a point then to circulate the room to deal with those people. I don't actually go into her doing that because he has to go away to deal with other stuff. But that was one. The second one was 3 guys trying to break the door down.
Right, you told us about that. You
Yeah,
talked
and
a
it's
little
like,
bit
this
about
is
that before.
mentioned just as an incident. It's like, no, wait a minute. This is serious stuff.
Yeah.
And the reaction to that. And then finally, I'm up to where he gets knocked on the head and they mug him in the street, Dudley. But the only thing they take is his letter case.
Right.
And now I'm going to have, this isn't mentioned in any of the histories, but knowing what I've been able to glean about Henry Wilding, his second in command, Wilding was always a little bit reluctant to be as scrupulous about observing the law as Dudley. Wilding and Maguire are going to go out and raise a little hell in the streets of Liverpool.
They're going to clean up a little mess.
They're going to take care of the parson.
Alrighty then. Yeah, that's a book that I'm hoping you make fast progress on. So
I'm hoping that by, I think, another year. It's going to take me that long.
Yeah,
This is long project, and
There's a lot of research involved in that,
So-
what you're doing.
I just this past weekend was down in Tucson at TusCon, and I don't know if you know Jim Doty.
Yeah, I've met Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jim had finally retired and is writing full time, and
Oh.
we had a long talk about how much more fun it is when you can actually sit down and decide that he's decided now this is my job.
Right. Right.
And he says your writing gets so much better, your focus gets so much better. And I said, well, I'll wait and see, Jim. We'll see how that works out.
We should all be able to do what we.
Well, Michelle came down with me, and the four of us, Jim's wife Karen was there.
Nice.
We had a great time.
Yeah.
We just had a lot of fun.
Well, I just finished the edits on Honoria.
Oh, good.
Or not Honoria, Lostons, on Lostons Found. So the middle grade steampunk. I got the edits done on that, and I've seen a draft of the cover. I'm very, very excited.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
I want to see this one.
I'm really excited about this one. So that's where we're at on that. I'm looking forward to getting a formatted copy so that I can do another round of, proofing on it or editing on it. But yeah, I'm feeling really excited about it, really happy about it. It's been through multiple beta readers and an editor now, as well as my revisions. So it's in pretty good shape. I need to let it cool off a little bit before I go back and read it again, though, just to make sure. But yeah, so that's
Cool.
exciting. Yeah, and the cover's really going to be glorious.